I'm really excited to be here. I'm going to talk today a little bit about my story. I'm going to talk about my passion for travel, and I'm going to talk about the Travel Noire story and how we've built the company over the past 2 years. But a little bit about me first. When I was a few years old, a tragedy happened in my family that would shape the rest of my life. And I didn't know it then, but my mother came across my father's hidden gun. And in an arranged marriage that was physically, emotionally, financially abusive, she decided to plan her escape. So by the time my father came back from his next business trip, we were gone. And it was my first cross-country road trip. And along the way, we had been robbed, put in shelters, and put on welfare. So as a result, my childhood resulted in a little back and forth until we ended up here in Rochester, Minnesota. When I was a young girl, I had to get really familiar with being different because there weren't very many kids who looked like me. I was used to being unconventional. So I went off to college to dabble in more unconventional things. By the time I was 19 years old, I had cloned a gene with similarities to a genetic disorder. And I was the youngest appointed precinct judge in the state of North Carolina. Among other things, my time in college was when I learned how to organize communities both on and offline. I created an organization to open a civil rights museum and led the youngest anti-tobacco organization in the country. So when an opportunity came for me to live and work abroad, I jumped at the opportunity to share what I'd learned about organizing communities in an international setting. And when I found out that I got this opportunity, I did what any young, wide-eyed, bushy-tailed college graduate would do. I sold everything that I owned and I moved to India. And what I found when I got there was deeply disturbing. It was terrifying. I saw it on my first night there and every single day for the year that I lived there. It was that being as dark as I was something to be ashamed of. It was that being different was something to hide. So I went searching for answers, and I wound up living on a train. Now, this experience was the most challenging experience I'd ever been a part of. I lived on a train with 450 other young Indians passionate about changing India. We would wake up every single morning at 5 a.m. to prepare to shadow a social entrepreneur for the day. I heard familiar stories, familiar challenges, and we sang familiar songs with people from all around the world. My new Indian friends shared their struggle of color with me, and I had to take that message to the world. But from my friends back home, I kept hearing the same things. This world isn't safe for people who look like us. I don't see anyone who looks like me doing it. Black people just don't travel there. They tell me the same stories that they'd been fed for decades. People were being sold the wrong story, and I, prior to living in India, was guilty of believing it. So now I'm going to tell you why I chose travel. $48 billion is spent on travel annually by African Americans in the United States alone. That doesn't account for other communities of the diaspora living outside of the United States. If you think of Afro-Brazilians, Black Europeans, etc. This number also doesn't account for the international travel spend. If you factor all of those numbers in, this number is much higher. I chose travel because 17% of African Americans take one or more international trips and travel more than 6 times every single year. Yet, only 2.6% of ads focus on African American audiences. Now, as far as age goes, millennials are leading the way. 20% of all international tourists are young people, generating more than $180 billion in annual tourism revenue, an increase of 30% since 2007. And while there are 78 million baby boomers in the United States, there are 84 million millennials, all with different travel patterns and vacation habits who need to be spoken to in a very different way. Millennials are the fastest growing age group in travel when it comes to money spent. So we knew that being well-traveled meant higher incomes and higher impact, better job performance, and a wealth of health. But we also knew a few other things. We knew that people of color were 38% more likely to make a purchase if advertisements reflected them. We knew that America was cultureless, or in other words, a melting pot full of different cultures and their customs. And we knew that we had this huge untapped potential because as people of color, we are top consumers of media. So what if, through representation in media, we could shift the definition of the international traveler? You know, there were a few things that I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to tell the right story, and I wanted to reinvent the way that we thought about travel and the international traveler. Every day, I wade through advertisements that look like this, desperately wanting to be spoken to, desperately trying to find somebody who looks like me in some of these advertisements. I pick up magazines, hoping to find a young woman who looks like me gallivanting across the globe. But instead, I see the very same thing that I've seen for my entire life. It's as if it's a blatant barrier. When I first started Travel Noire, I did a quick search of Black travel, and this is what I found: Black suitcases, Black purses. I wanted to see me. So Travel Noire is a digital publishing platform. We create tools, resources, and experiences for travelers of color to help them discover, plan, and experience new destinations. We started with a simple idea. We began to show people themselves, and they responded. They sent us pictures of them in Morocco and in Thailand, in Portugal and in South Africa, in Indonesia and in Uganda, in Egypt and Brazil, and in France and even in Antarctica and more. We brought on 100 content creators who lived all over the world to share their love of travel. We moved into instructional programming, like how to launch your global career and how to get paid to travel the world. We launched Travel Noire TV as an extension of what we were already bringing to life on travelnoire.com. We wanted to bring the world to people to help them inspire their next journey. We would bring on fellows to help build the brand, and I, in turn, would teach them every single thing that I knew about travel. We would build a completely distributed team. They could live anywhere in the world that they felt the most productive and the most happy. And we would share our unconventional way of living and working with the world. And then something strange happened. In a popular news outlet, Greece was named as one of the most racist countries for people of color to travel to. And at that moment, I knew that we had the power to repackage the story. It was our very first case study in influence, and I wanted to see just how far we could push the needle forward. One of our first videos on Travel Noire TV was one of our writers gallivanting around this tiny little island in Greece called Zakynthos. We publicized multiple stories on travelnoire.com over the course of 6 months. And then something magical happened. People started sharing their stories. This is Janie. She wrote me an email, and in that email she said, I was conflicted about my trip to Greece. I asked everyone, even strangers, to travel with me to Athens, to Mykonos, to Santorini, and I was terrified. No one came, and I went alone. And it was the best trip I had ever been on. Because of your Instagram and the travel chats, I didn't listen to the naysayers. I went and saw on my own. People saw themselves in the very places that they were told they could not go. And that, in and of itself, changed everything. People wanted to write about us. They wanted to share our very unconventional story with the world. Brands wanted to get their messages across in the most authentic way to new markets. And because they understood our influence, we were able to create really meaningful and impactful campaigns. We later launched a digital chat community with thousands of our most loyal customers. You can find flight attendants, expats, entrepreneurs, digital nomads, professors, new travelers, and more. And we're able to keep our finger on the pulse of what's hot or what's trending in travel. And we're able to connect with our audience in real time. We then launched Travel Noire experiences, immersive international group experiences. And we sold out of 8 different trips in less than 90 minutes. Here is a video that I want you guys to check out.
Most people travel because what they're really after is a better, more cultured life. What they're looking for is an opportunity to live life on their own terms with people who challenge them to be better. They want to see and do new things to break the routine of life. They want a job that doesn't feel like work. One that grants them the flexibility to become who they've always wanted to be. They travel for the way that it challenges them to be lost and then again to be found. They travel to find their limits, both physical and mental, to gently push them. And they understand that even if it doesn't start well, it always ends well. They don't travel simply because they're curious. They travel to learn more about themselves and the world, because the goal isn't just to come home different, it's to come home better. They want the opportunity to change, to swap city for country, affluence for simplicity, fast for slow living, and security for risk. But what they really want is to live a life they love. A life that rises to meet them every morning. My name is Zim Ugochukwu, and I am the founder of Travel Noire Experiences, the premier immersive group experience for people who want to unlock their potential, build transformative relationships, and explore the world.
We've grown the brand by 567% in the last year on social alone, and 215% on unique visitors on travelnoire.com. For the first year, we prioritized building this community over profit because we believed that in order to build trust, we would need to provide a ton of value. And with the trust that we would build, we'd be able to win hearts and minds and instill a deep sense of loyalty. And now financially, we've grown a monthly recurring revenue by 300%. This is what's important. And you can help us tell the right story. There is so much potential But we cannot do this alone. Will you help us change the narrative? The future depends on it. Because if not us, who? And if not now, when? Thank you.